We're running late. I'll try to be brief. So I will not go through all my slides, but I'm sure they can be made available after the meeting. The chair asked in the beginning, well, what's happening with international climate commitments? I think the most important meeting we had in July was the G20 meeting. An energy and climate action agenda was agreed, and 19 of the 20 parties signed up. Of course, the missing one is the US, but I think also if you look at the US, the commitment as shown in the different states and of the private sector is very encouraging. As was shown by Mr. Kumar, we had done some background analysis in preparation of that G20 discussion. And it was a joint study with the IRENA IEA, and we both agreed that, first of all, you need an energy transition if you really want to meet the climate agreements. And second, energy efficiency and renewable energy are the two cornerstones of that energy transition. I think the IEA had 50% renewables by 2050, we had 65%. Let's see how far we get. But it's a lot more than the 16% in primary energy terms where we are today. And it represents roughly a 7-fold increase of what we have seen in the last 5 years on a global scale. So while everybody is talking a lot about the great progress of renewables in power generation, in fact, we need a lot more if we're serious about the climate agreements. And policy is an important driver for that, but policy is only part of it. Innovation is really important, and therefore I'm very happy that the theme of this Congress is renewable energy technology. And everybody this morning has already talked about electric vehicles, electrification and the importance of sector coupling. But there is more. And you see very, very rapid change. Just to give you a few recent numbers. So on concentrating solar power, news this month was a project was tendered in Australia. And the offer was 61 US or 6.1 US cents per kilowatt hour for a system with 10 hours storage. For CSP, we're not talking PV. Now, if that project is really built, that is a game changer, because that is then your solar for the evening or for the night. That was mentioned as a problem this morning. On offshore wind, we see dramatic cost reductions over the past year. So the most recent project standard in Germany, the project developer said, we don't need a subsidy anymore. We'll just do it at market price. That is also radical change from what we've seen a few years ago. Granted, they still get the grid connection for free, which is 1.5 to 2 US cents per kilowatt hour, but still, it's very, very close. In Germany, the majority of the new solar home systems are installed with battery. Again, special situation, high electricity prices in Germany, low wholesale prices, but still, it shows to a dramatic change in this specific technology field, and of course applications may grow then worldwide. So my point is that yes, of course, we need to push on the technologies we have today, but innovation keeps going very rapidly on the technology side, and recently also we see a lot of innovations in business models, combinations of ICT and energy technologies that make that create a lot of new opportunities that will certainly change the outlook in the next 10, 20 years, and we need that. Now for India, we have looked at renewables potentials as part of our roadmap program. It was the 10th such country report we issued, and I think the summary is available outside. Our conclusion is that India should aim for 25% renewables in its final energy mix by 2030, and that would make would be technically feasible, and it would make economic sense. The NREL study was just discussed. This is in that sense very helpful. It shows 175 gigawatts by 2022 is technically feasible, but there's also a 250 gigawatt case in there. And it says that case is also feasible, but you will see more curtailment in the south. Now, we have in this scenario 400 gigawatts by 2030. So clearly the grid investments then becomes an issue, and that is then something also to work on. So enabling infrastructure is very important. A last point I want to make is that we talk a lot about the power sector. And of course, power sector is very important. But for example, in the case of India, we find that renewable power is about 40% of the total renewables potential. And the other 60% is in heat and transportation fuels. So solar for heating applications, biomass for heating, biofuels, all need a role to play on top of renewable power and electrification of the end-use sectors. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I want to conclude my remarks.